Hi, my name is Madeline Petrin and welcome to my YouTube channel. So video 3 of the Academy/Self-Publishing A to Z series is going to be on writing productivity. It's kind of out of order because you're not ready to write your story yet, but you need 1 to 2 months of tracking to know how fast you write. I could say that I can write 10 to 12,000 words in a day because I have done it before, but those are like anomalies. Those are not my average writing days. So when you're figuring out how long it's going to take you to write the book, which will come in a later video, it's really useful if you know, like, oh, on average, this is how many words I write. Like, personally, my writing average per day is about 1 to 3,000 words. So if I was like planning to write a book and thought like, oh, I could write 10,000 words a day, I'll be fine, I would be sorely disappointed because my average is more between 1 to 3,000 words. I'm going to give you a bunch of tips for writing and possibly writing faster and writing productivity in general. But they are tips and they're suggestions and they're what worked for some people, but they don't work for other people. Everybody's different. Even me, I've gone from different ends of the spectrum as to what helped me and what hinders me. So I'm just going to lay them out, give you them, but you can pick and choose what you want. It's a good thing to try them out if you don't know what works for you. But if you know what works for you, by all means, stick with it. Kate Kavanaugh has a bunch of videos about like, I spent a day plotting like J.K. Rowling, I spent a day writing like Stephen King, and she does these really awesome videos where she just tries all kinds of different writing techniques. And I know it's for YouTube videos, it's entertaining for us, but it's an amazing way to figure out your writing technique and your writing style and how you're most productive. Number 1 is plotting. There's a reason why the month of October is known as Preptober for anybody who's doing NaNoWriMo. A lot of us take advantage of this time to figure out what our stories are going to be about, who our characters are, and we do all the world building and all the other things that you can do before you start writing. For you, it could be just having a general outline, it could be knowing who your characters are going to be. You can have a minute, detailed list of every single event, every single scene, every single moment that's going to happen, where you even have like some of the dialogue already there. It could be scene cards. What I used to do is I like to have chapter descriptions that just says, this is the chapter where it's her birthday, or this is the chapter where she makes a move and he turns her down. You know, just, I wouldn't plot it out entirely. I wouldn't know what situation was going to happen or how they celebrated her birthday, but I would just know what has to happen, what has to change by the end of this chapter. This might not work out for you. You might like to discover it as you go. You might be a total pantser, but it can help you write faster if you know where you're going. Even if you just figure out what the scene is going to be about before you start a word spread. One suggestion I've also heard is to have a document ready. So like, let's say you're setting it in a fictional town. If you just have a document where you have like all the different names of restaurants and different names of people and stuff in your town, whenever you're writing and you're like blocked and you don't know, you can just quickly go to that document and grab something and put it right back in. Number 2, it can be useful if you set goals and deadlines. So the advantage of NaNoWriMo is that you have a time frame. You know that you need to write 50,000 words in the month of November. I can say I want to write a book, but if I don't have any time frame, if I don't have any words, no idea what I'm doing, then it's hard to figure out. Like when you're in school running out of SMART goals, it always had to be like measurable, attainable. You have to be able to track whether or not you're getting there. So that might not work for you, but for me, it's really useful to know like, okay, if I'm hitting this many words a day, I'm good. If I fall really behind on another day, then I have to catch up the next day, or I have to catch up ahead of time if I know I'm gonna miss out. Like I'm doing the Milwordy challenge, and the other day I only wrote 500 words, and I'm aiming to write 3,000 words a day, so I was way behind, but I knew that. So the next day I wrote 5,500 words, and then the average of the 2 days was 6,000, but it helped because I knew how many words I had to write to not be behind. Number 3 that kind of goes with this is scheduling your writing time. So for me, that doesn't always work. My schedule is very much up in the air with the acting. I mostly do background, where you find out sometimes a week before, sometimes the day before, sometimes you have no idea and they'll just call you on the day because they had a cancellation. But I do really like scheduling things. Like when I was in university, it was obsessive how much I scheduled. I find it's easier to do what you're supposed to do when you know what you're supposed to be doing. And if I'm really stressed out and overwhelmed by all the things that I have to do, I find that if I can schedule it out and see that theoretically everything fits in the time frame that I have, I can relax more. And even though I've wasted all that time plotting or figuring it out instead of actually doing things, I'm reassured in knowing that I can accomplish everything as long as I stick to the schedule. Number 4 is to set up your writing space and tools. So they say that if you have the same spot where you write in every single day, all the time, then it's like your brain knows as soon as you sit here that this is your writing space, so I need to be ready to write now. Some people get really bored from always being in the same place and they like to write in different cafes all the time. I sometimes like to switch it up. For me, I really love writing in a notebook, especially when I'm discovering a story and I don't know what's supposed to happen. I like being able to like hold the pen in my hand and think of things and write a little bit down, write random conversations, cross them out when I realize they don't work, but I can still read them underneath the crossing out. So when I'm discovering a story, I really like doing it in a notebook, whereas where I'm flowing and I know exactly what's going on and I'm writing like a lot of words at once, then I like to do it on my laptop because I find it's easier to type really, really fast and not have to like type it up afterwards and edit it. Whereas if you're discovering it, you do want to edit it as you're typing it up because it's kind of very raw when you're putting it out. Another thing to figure out is whether you like to write in complete silence or if you like to have music playing. Sometimes when I'm writing a story, I like to have a playlist going of different songs that, you know, get me in the character's head, whereas sometimes I find it a lot easier to write if there's absolute silence. I'll even put my headphones in and not listen to anything, just because it cuts out on the outside noise and it looks like I'm busy so people don't bother me as much. But then like my cousin, she had to listen to Buffy the Vampire Slayer while she was doing her homework because she needed to have some kind of background noise. And I completely get that. Sometimes there's so much going on in your head that you need something outside to provide the noise so that your head can concentrate on the story. Just figure out what works for you. Try the different ways. The best writing for me was actually when I was in school and the teacher's talking and you're supposed to be taking notes. That's when like my writing was gold. I was so productive. It was unbelievable. So I think I need something boring to be going on so that I can focus on the writing. It also works if like hockey games, fighting matches, anything that I will not be concentrating on but that I can look up every once in a while I'm thinking and have something to occupy my brain so that it can just figure out the answers. But it's not as easy if you're actually interested in and watching the shows. It could also be really useful to disconnect from the internet. They have apps where you can restrict the use of internet. I really like the idea of the Forest app where you set a timer on your phone and it's like, as long as I don't touch my phone for this period of this sprint or whatever, the forest will grow on your phone. But I feel like you can bypass that by going on your computer or something like that. So there's a lot of productivity apps that you can use that will like block you from using the internet while you're doing this. One writing tip that I've heard by a lot of people is to not edit as you go. I find this is really hard sometimes if you're not doing it consistently because you have to go back and read what you wrote and then you can't help but edit it as you're doing it. But while you're writing, it's really a lot easier if you don't go back and edit yourself because I mean, just let it flow and edit it after because it's two different brains. You know, there's your creative brain that's just coming up with ideas and doesn't want to be judged and just wants to like write what it comes up with. And then there's your editing brain that has to look at it and think, is this good? Is this is this quality content? Is this going to attract readers? And there's so many things that your editing brain should not be in control of your creative masterpiece until it gets to a point where you're confident enough for that. Anyway, so it saves time if you don't edit while you're writing because you can write like 1,000 words and then cut half of them and then it's like you only wrote 500 words where really you deserve the credit for those 1,000 words that you wrote. My first stories that I wrote, because they really weren't books, I had this rule where once I wrote it, I couldn't delete it. So I'd have like the most outlandish plot things going on, but I couldn't change them because I had that rule, and I don't think that's the best idea. I do think that some good editing is a great idea, but rather get the words out and have it out there and have it finished so that I have something to work with because it's a lot easier to edit a story than it is to edit a blank page. If I'm not sure about something when I'm writing, I'll just write like 3 X's because if you do a search afterwards, you can find those 3 X's really easy. So I know whenever I have 3 X's, it means that there's information that I either need to check or that I haven't figured out yet and I want to figure out after. Number 6 would be the Pomodoro or egg timer technique. I found out about this from Lauren Graham's book, which is a really cool read if you want to check it out. Basically, you set a timer for like, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be an hour. During that time, it's your writing time. If you're not going to use it writing, that's fine, but you can't use it doing anything else. So you can journal, you can write, I don't know what to write, you can just start the blank page, but you can't do anything else. So the odds are that eventually you will get writing because if you're going to sit there and do nothing, you might as well write. Number 6 is like a way cooler version of the Pomodoro technique where a group of you get together and you have writing sprints. So you guys set off a timer where it's like you choose how long you're going to sprint for, and it's just everybody writes their own words, and then at the end of when the timer goes off, you guys just relax, take a break, talk about how many words you did, talk about your works in progress. It's an amazing opportunity to not only get your words in, but to connect with other people. I'm really motivated by the idea of having to share how many words I wrote, so I'm like dedicating to actually really being productive and getting my words in. Although I guess you could do them alone as well. Basically, you set a timer for a certain time period. During that time, you write. And then when it's over, you take a break, like 5 minutes or something like that. You can check your Facebook, do whatever you need to do, and then you get right back into it. Keep track of your words. In Chris Fox's book, 5,000 Words Per Hour, this is how he tracks how fast he writes. He does lots of different sprints. So you multiply how many words you got. Like let's say you do 2 half-hour sprints and you got 500 words in each half-hour sprint. Then you say that you write 1,000 words per hour. Whereas if you would have given yourself just a full hour with nothing else, you might have gotten distracted and not ended up writing as much, and you might have only gotten 800 words, but because you broke it up and you had a break in the middle and you can rethink about what you were going to write, then your actual writing time could be more productive. Number 8 is tracking. So I had a lot of trouble finishing things. I was really bad at it. I had finished one play that happened in one of my stories, so not even a play that I wanted to publish, and a project for school where we wrote Dracula, but I had a lot of trouble getting to the end of books. But with NaNoWriMo, it's I had no choice. There was a word tracker, so every day I updated my word count, and I would see the stats saying oh, you will finish on time, or you're gonna finish a week after the deadline, or you're gonna finish early. And I loved seeing that I was gonna finish early, so it was a really good motivation for me to keep going, just like the Millwordy challenge, tracking my words every day and seeing the numbers go down and making sure that I have at least 3,000 words every day. It's really inspiring me and keeping me going. Other people find that's way too much work and it just takes away from their writing time, and they don't enjoy that, and that's also cool, but it is something that you can consider. And you don't only have to count words. You can keep track of your words, you can keep track of how many pages you write, you can keep track of how much time you spend writing. Scarlett Cole, who's also on YouTube, she's going to count her writing sprint. She knows how many words she writes per writing sprint, so she's just going to, for NaNoWriMo, do so many word sprints, and she figures that on average she'll get to the right amount of words with that. So that's a really cool idea if 50,000 words seems really daunting, but so many writing sprints doesn't. What I like to do, especially I do this during NaNoWriMo and also when I was writing the Owens Chronicles first drafts, is I like to do it by chapter. So on this day I need to finish chapter 1. Chapter 1 could be 3,000 words, it could be 4,000 words, it could also be 1,000 words. If that's the case, I'll probably have to add to it in the book. But that way it's not a word count and you're not adding a bunch of extra words to get to a certain number. You're just writing the story and the amount of words that it needs to have. And I think that's my best way of writing, is where I just write however many words it takes to write the story. That being said, some people don't like finishing the chapter and then ending things and then going back to it the next day. Somebody told me to finish the story whenever you know what's coming next, so that when you start, you know where you're starting. But sometimes I'm writing the story and I know exactly where I'm going, I know exactly what the next sentence is, but then I'll stop and I'll be okay, cool, I know my next sentence, and then I'll come back to it hours later and I don't remember what that sentence was, and I write something else, and the whole time it's just nagging me oh, whatever I had originally was so much better. And it might be, it might not have been, but because I can't remember it, I'm convinced that it was. So personally, I like knowing where the story is going and not writing to the end of the story. I like having more figured out. But I don't like stopping in the middle of a scene or in the middle of a sentence unless I know that I won't forget what's going to happen. Number 9 is accountability partners. I'm a huge proponent of having accountability partners. It's the reason why I started my blog. It's a huge benefit of the YouTube channel. It's why I love writing sprints. It's, having people who hold you accountable. When I do the writing sprints, at the end they're okay, so how did you do? And writing my word count really keeps me motivated, because I know oh, I'm not going to do anything else during this sprint time, because I want to make sure that when I tell how many words I did, I want it to be consistent with everybody else or better than I did before. It's good to hold you accountable, to keep you in check, and it's good if you're not doing something alone. If it's a personal goal but it's just you and nobody else knows about it, then there's less of a chance that you're going to follow through. You only have so much self-control and self-restraint and motivation for yourself per day, so if you can have somebody else who's helping you out and giving you an extra nudge or a push or just support, it's a lot easier to get it done when you're not alone. Number 10 is rewards. I studied psychology, so I know both sides of this. Rewards can be very beneficial and they can also be very detrimental, so you have to see what works for you. For me, I have the problem I'm always thinking of food goals, which could be good, could be also really bad. What I really like to do is I give myself an hour to write 1,000 words. It takes me a lot less to write those words. If I'm sitting down, dedicated, and working at it, I can write 1,000 words in less than a half an hour. I don't know how long exactly. So giving myself an hour to write these 1,000 words means that if it takes me the whole hour because I'm procrastinating and taking my time and it's taking me forever, then I'll just spend an hour writing those 1,000 words. Whereas if I write those 1,000 words in the first half hour, then I have a half an hour I can read, or I can write something else that I wanted to write, or I can, you know, go for a walk or go have a snack, or, you know, I can do something else instead of just spending an hour doing what it really only takes me half an hour to do. One year for Lent, I gave up writing things that I wasn't going to publish. So any story that I knew wasn't publishable quality, or it was fan fiction or something like that, I didn't write it. So my reward for finishing this goal was that I could write all the fan fiction that I wanted. It could also be like self-care and pampering and stuff like that. You know, taking a bubble bath or going to the movies. You can find the rewards that work for you. You can write down a bunch of things that would make you really happy, and then let yourself do them when you hit certain targets, or when you hit certain word counts or chapter goals, or rewards can be really, really motivating. This is video 3 of the Self-Publishing A to Z series on writing productivity. If you enjoyed it, please like it. If you want to get more content like this and continue the self-publishing series with me, you can subscribe to the channel below. I will release new videos every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.